So we're back in the studio now. We've been joined by Aaron, who's one of the volunteers here today. And believe me, it takes an awful lot of people to put on an event like this. There's so many people out there helping out and making the actual day work. Aaron, you actually were a second place finalist last year in the UK's and in the Europeans. So how are you finding the day here as a volunteer?
I'm loving it. There's so much less pressure as a volunteer than as a competitor. It's really hard for the teams, and getting to volunteer is really interesting, getting to see what's happening behind the scenes, because it's a lot.
And what's your main role when you're here actually helping out and being a volunteer then?
Today I've been helping out on the practice table, so making sure everyone gets a slot to practice, and if any teams are having real emergencies, that they get enough time to sort that out before their robot runs.
And from your point of view, looking at the actual sort of animal allies that's the main table today and all the things that are going on, how would you have approached the actual table and what would have your tactics been?
It's really tough. It's a really interesting table. A lot of the teams seem to be going for the shark and the food, which makes a lot of sense. Not many teams that I've seen, at least, go for. You can put some of the items in a training area, they call it. So I don't know. Maybe I would have gone with that, but it's really tough.
And there's some of the teams that have done exceptionally well so far, getting some big scores out there, and other teams seem to be having a little problems. In the past, when you were taking part, what were the things that made it different from when you were setting all of this up back at your school to actually coming into the finals or to the regionals? What's the sort of difference between when you're doing it at school and then going into one of the competitions?
When you're practicing over the term, it can be very easy to get lost in thinking, oh, we have to get this mission done. Whereas when you're on the day and competing, everything suddenly becomes crystal clear. Right, we've got 10 minutes, the robot has to be doing something at least. And so a lot of the final adjustments get made right before you go up. And I think it's really interesting to watch all the teams suddenly come together and fix everything right before they have to go up.
So it's almost like the pressure of the actual day suddenly hones everything in and you make those decisions, whereas perhaps when you had too much time, you spent too much time thinking about it almost.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, brainstorming is very important, but it can be very easy to get lost and focus too much on one mission or be too ambitious. When you're on the day, you've got such a limited time, you really have to just get in there.
And from your sort of understanding, we've seen quite a lot of different types of robots, and we heard earlier from some of the guys saying that actually a small nimble robot this year would be good. What was your robot like? Yours was called Rubbish Runners, was it?
Yeah, that was.
And what was it? Was it a big robot, a small one? Was it lots of attachments?
We had quite a small robot. Last year the missions were all quite close together, so you really needed quite a small robot to just fit everywhere. We had a lot of attachments. I was the programmer. We had two amazing builders, and so for us it was about getting the consistency. We didn't mind so much if we didn't do all the missions or all the really high scoring ones, but if we could get a few of them really consistent, that was our strategy, and looks like it worked out.
Brilliant. Well, it looks like now we're going to be joining actually another race. So hopefully what we'll do now is we'll use your knowledge and expertise over the last few years of taking part. How many years did you take part before you got a second place then?
I competed 3 years in total, so 2 years before I won.
So a lot of experience then. We'll hopefully get some sort of commentary from you now and perhaps try and keep people up to date on some scores as well. Well, here we go. So this looks like St Thomas's School by the look of it, if I could read that right. And they're off straight away. What's happening here then?
So they're attempting the fridge mission, where you pull on the fridge or push on the fridge from behind and get out these coloured food things. Unfortunately, they didn't manage to complete it this time.
It was just a few millimetres off, wasn't it?
It's interesting. A lot of teams go from behind and tend to push it, but as you can see, they're trying it from the front and trying to pull, which is a really interesting strategy.
And there's literally something there is just ever so slightly wrong in one of the sensors or something that means it's not quite going far enough over to the right, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so precise you have to be with Mindstorms. And
so
it's really difficult.
Their tactics now are to just forget that one. Let's do something else. Let's get some points on the board. They're going in here for the shark in,
yeah.
And this is how much? I think this is worth roughly around. The shark's worth around, I think, 10, 15, 20 points. And then if the shark stays upright, it kind of doubles that. Another 20 points. So they've got that straight into I think that's the 7-pointer hole. And they get 20 points because it stayed upright. So that's a good score on the board.
Yeah, and that's a very quick one to do. You can do that very quickly at any point, so you can adapt your strategy on the fly.
So they're off now, and it looks like they're coming over. They're going to try and pick our little friend up there and the bumblebee. Now
Oh,
they've
that's
left our little friend behind, the pink guy, and that means they can't touch it with
Yeah.
their hands, can they?
Yeah, that's correct.
But do you think they might pick that up on the way back?
I think if I had to guess, I'd say they'd run another mission and might hope it knocks in on
Yes.
the way because it's so close.
It looks like they're going to think that. He thought about picking it up and he's left it here, so
Yeah.
he's leaving it out there.
So you can see
what happens.
They're going to try and push it and then maybe come back for it a bit later.
Yeah. So that was great. So look, they've pushed that in there. That's really important to get those guys into that area, isn't it?
Yeah, and not many teams I've seen have been attempting it, so it's really interesting to see them going for it. And I think it's a decent number of points as well.
So now they're putting another attachment on the front here, and they're going really well. They've had a few little. Oh, that was unfortunate. Ooh. Again, it was just ever so slightly off.
So slightly off, but I think they'll get the points for running over the fence at least.
Yes.
Even if they don't do the rest of it.
Yeah. Now looks like they've got one final bit to put on here, and then they've got another one. They've got 19 seconds left. They're doing fantastically well. They're setting up.
It's really impressive.
And here it goes. They're just going to drop it in. They're going to try and take this manure into the area where they recycle.
It's so tense in those last few seconds to see what you can get done. Oh, I think that might have just been in. That was amazing.
That was fantastic to get that. I mean, you could see there they were actually trying to get the attachment on quick enough. They've done it. They stayed calm. They've got it out, and they've literally popped that manure into that area with, like you said, a second to go.
It's great to see the teamwork when you're actually running the robot. It's very easy to get stressed and fumble around and drop attachments. They seemed really calm. They got it on just in time. It was really great.
So as a programmer, when you were actually just taking part, we see that there's a couple of guys there doing the sort of adding the attachments. Who are those guys generally in the team? Are they the builders then?
It really varies. It can be builders, programmers. We had quite a small team last year. There were only 4 of us. And so we had 2 builders, me, the programmer, and someone whose sole job was to focus on the lining up. We called him the liner-upper. So he was building all these attachments to make sure that it went off at the right angle, and he was one of the people launching the robot.
And that's where you see at the beginning when the guys are putting like Lego around the edges of the area where you're in your kind of in your home area, and then that starts it off in the right direction to make sure that it's not going off at funny angles.
And that's really important because there are, I think, little grids and notches you can use, but if you do it by hand, especially if it's going off at an angle, you'll never get it at exactly the same starting position as you did before, which makes it very difficult to test and iterate and improve upon it.
So the last team we saw there that were actually having a few problems with it, just not quite making it to the right places, that could have been one of the areas they perhaps could improve on, would be to build some Lego guides, as it were, that would help them start it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've seen a few people doing that, and we haven't really seen anybody using the kind of the area where on the table you pass Lego the animals from one side to the other. It doesn't seem to, but that's quite a high point scoring place as well.
That is, yeah. I saw a couple of people attempt it at the regional, which I was refereeing at. And it's really difficult to get because it's right at the top of the board, but it's a lot of points, and it applies to the other team as well. So a lot of people, I think, hoped that the other team would do it.
Oh, I see. So you not only do you get the points, but they get the points for having passed it.
Yeah.
So that could be. I mean, you could be helping another team out, so perhaps stay away from it. But
that's part of the core values of the competition, isn't it? It's you're getting the points, and you're helping another team. So in many ways, it's a win-win.
It should be more. It should be even more points for helping the other team as well. That's fantastic.
And that's one of the reasons I think why it's so high scoring is to encourage you to attempt that mission.
Okay, and so. Going forward and for these guys this afternoon now, there's a little break now before the next round. What's it like to be sort of second rounds? It hasn't gone as well. What do you do? Do you go? Have you been in that situation?
Absolutely, yeah. When I was at the national finals last year, we had a couple of issues with our robot. One of the people launching it actually got sick, and so we had to swap out another member. And in that situation, you just have to stop and take a minute or 5 or 10 and just breathe and just relax for a minute. Because if you get stressed, then it's just not going to help.
Well, it looks like now we're going back to the tables. We're going to be able to see another set of teams here. We're going to be looking down on the tables in a second, but hopefully again you'll be able to bring some real insight to our viewers about what's actually going on and what's happening with all of the different things on the table. So any second now we'll see that. Now it's interesting you were saying there about keeping calm. Keeping calm is really key in this. If you start panicking, then the whole thing just goes apart, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's much easier said than done because you've got so much to keep track of and so much to keep in your head on the day. But it's one of the most important things, and I think the successful teams have really got that down. Whether that's an experienced team and they're calm because they know what's happening, or a new team that's just works really well together and are really comfortable around each other. That's one of the most important things.
And in terms of attachments and things, is it better to have lots of attachments, or can you try and build something that is multi-purpose?
The less attachments and the more compact and simple your robot is, the less room there is for error generally. So if you have 10 different attachments, it can be really great and you can score really highly, but there's far more chance that it will end up breaking or something will go ever so slightly wrong and you won't get the point. So I think simplicity is key.
And you were programming. How do you tie up? It's a chicken and egg thing. If you're building the robot to do a task, you obviously need to think about programming. So how does it work together? And we're coming now to a live table. They've gone straight in. Look, we'll come back to that question.
Yeah.
Come straight in here, and they've gone for the hard shark delivery there, haven't they? And
Yeah, that's less
beautiful.
common. That was really great. Yeah, it was
so
very smooth.
Exactly. It was so smooth that the shark stayed upright, so they'll get maximum points for that. They've come back, and a very simple actually attachment there. So they're putting their next attachment on there. This looks like something that picks things up.
Yes, so you can see one of the motors on the front there, which looks like, I'm guessing it is going to go for the B. And that's quite a difficult changeover. If you've got motors or sensors you need to plug in, it's just one extra thing to think about.
I got you. And then you have to restart and program and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
They look like they're not using guides, as we were talking about earlier. So that might be something but this looks like...
So far they've been attempting...
Fantastic. So they've done two missions, and they've come back for the...
Oh, that's great.
Oh, and in one go, look at that. Now
That's great.
And they're coming over for another thing as well.
Oh, so they're attempting the animal mission that
there
we
we
talked
go.
about.
So they're using the same pulley and machine. That is really unfortunate.
That's great to
that was
reuse it,
brilliant.
yeah.
It's not quite. It's gone a little bit too far in by the look of it.
Yeah.
But we saw there a real multi-purpose tool. It dropped off the bee, got the honey, grabbed our little friend. They've gone over there. They've tried to use their arm, as it were, to spin that around. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone, but it's still coming back with all their bits for them.
Yeah, so you still got the points for the bee and you still got the points for our little friend.
Yeah.
So that, I would say that was quite a successful run.
Exactly.
Usually, there isn't such a thing as a perfect run. No. On the day, something's always going to go wrong.
So now they've got a different attachment on the front now by the look of it. Oh no, it's the same attachment. They've just raised that sort of nose arm out of the way, and now they're going to try...
So I think they're going to put our little friend in the farm area for even more points. There it is.
There it is. So fantastic. This is a fantastic run. They'll be getting some great scores.
I like how they keep it quite close to the base. So as we said, they're not using a lining up tool, but because it's quite simple, they're going straight out.
Yes.
They can get away with that and keep it really simple, which is nice.
So here they go. They've got 20 seconds left. They're trying to do one more thing by the look of it, and we're going to see which it is. I reckon they're going to try and drive round the little kind of roadway circuit.
Yeah,
and
try and run over the fence, yeah.
That's it, and run over the fence.
But they've got 10 seconds.
They've got 10, 9, 8. This would be great. This would really help them out. They need to get over their 6.
That's great.
Timing.
That's so close.
And there we go. They've got through there. That was a fantastic
That's
run.
brilliant.
Really excellent. So it was interesting there, and just one little tiny sort of half an inch further backwards, and that the nose section there would have lifted up, and they would have spun that animal round to share it with the next table, giving both teams 60 points.
Yeah.
And it was so close.
Yeah, it really was. But it's nice to see that they even attempted that. As we said, many teams don't. So even the fact that they gave it a go is really nice to see.
Well, Aaron, it's been fantastic having you in the studio.
No, thank you.
An insight, and have a great rest of the day sort of helping out there. And hopefully now what we're going to do is pop back out and have a look what's going out in the auditorium.